In today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you all about my tarot practice of 2022. I'm going to share with you my standout decks of 2022, and I'm also going to share with you my most used decks of 2022. So do get yourself a nice hot drink, settle back, relax and enjoy. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for joining me for today's video. I hope that you are well and safe and taking good care of yourselves. In today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you some of my standout decks of 2022, including Oracle and Tarot. And I'm also going to share with you my most used decks as well. I think there have been a few hashtags circling around, so I will find out who started those and put credits below. But basically I wanted to do like a roundup of my tarot year essentially, and what it's been like for me and what I've been working with and the standout decks for me. I have brought in some new decks into my collection this year, a lot of secondhand decks and older decks and some newer decks, some independent decks, also some new mass market decks as well, some that I'm really excited about. I've been a lot more discerning this year about the decks I've wanted to pick up. I have also made some mistakes still this year though. Probably not gonna have time to share everything, but I'm really excited to get stuck into this and share some details about my practice over the last year. So without further ado, let's just get right on into it. Okay, so predictably, we need to start off with this deck. Of course, this is the Centennial Rider-Waite-Smith deck, the tarot deck I use most frequently in my practice, and I've spoken about this in a number of videos before. I'm not going to labour on this. I'm sorry, there are upside down cards. Most of you, of course, watching this will have seen this deck 1,000 times. If you need a walkthrough, there are hundreds on YouTube. I set an intention at the start of 2022 that I would not be using this deck too often, because I feel like I fall back on it for especially predictive readings and when I'm reading for other people. Well, not necessarily fall back on it, I just prefer to use it quite frequently because I feel that the archetypes are there and the messages are really clear and I just really enjoy it. I tried to step away from using this so frequently with other people when I was doing readings for others. However, I did use this as well as the Universal Rider-Waite-Smith as well. That one aside now, I'm going to go into the decks that I used the most this year, and then I will talk about the decks that I feel are standout decks for me for this year. So in no particular order, Oracle decks, Tarot decks all together. So the soul cards, I've been using this deck throughout the entire year, and I've used this as a card on its own, or I've pulled several cards to stand alone. I've also used them alongside tarot readings, and I've pulled them before tarot readings as well as after. And I've often found that the images within the tarot deck kind of mirror the images that are in the soul cards, which I really enjoy. So I really do love the way that they seem to be intuitively resonant with whatever messages are coming through that day. And I think it always speaks to the internalization and the kind of process of whatever is going on within, and the emotional and spiritual, kind of the psyche as well. So yeah, the psychological, I think it speaks to all of those realms, and I use it very much in a shadow work kind of way as well as introspective way, supportive way, less for predictive readings, although I have utilised it for that purpose. But I found this to be a companion throughout the entire year. I've had this in my bedroom with the rest of my tarot decks that I kind of keep out. I've shared that before. I switch them over as and when I feel, swap certain decks out, keep certain decks there, whatever speaks to me as and when. And this one has been out all year. So I've really enjoyed using this in my practice. This is Soul Cards 1. Probably the most surprising deck for me this year was this Tantric Dakini Oracle. I think I saw this on numerous people's channels. Rose Honey Ritual, I believe, was the main person that I think made me get this deck. The book itself is fantastic. It's really thick and it's got lots and lots in there to dive deep into. I still haven't finished this book fully, but I do want to because I formed quite an attachment to this deck, and this deck has basically been out since I purchased it towards the beginning of the year. I have used it more as an oracle, and I would like to get to know the deck more intimately, so that's another reason why I kept it out. But I often would just pull it when I felt intuitively that I needed to, and I don't know what it is about this deck. There's something about the way it probes into a circumstance or a situation or deep inner knowing and it's like remembering this key information or this key inner wisdom that you already have within you, and just picking up on that and remembering it. And it's almost like waking up and awakening. And as someone who still feels like a complete beginner with this deck, I have a lot of understanding and learning to do with this deck, and more experience I want to get out of this deck. I really do feel that I enjoyed working with this. I love the way it looks, and it pairs really beautifully with a number of different tarot decks. I've really enjoyed it, and I will keep using it. I'd like to read the rest of the book, keep going with my journey with it, because I really enjoyed it. It's really beautiful. So that is the Tantric Dakini Oracle. Another deck that I won't labour too long with is my Morrigan deck that I made myself to work with the Morrigan, and I'll just briefly show you these because it's quite a personal deck, and these are found art pieces that you're allowed to use for your own personal use. So I have not created a commercial version of this. That's maybe something for the future, but this is just something that I use to commune with the Morrigan quite frequently in my practice. 2022 was the year of the re-release of the Victorian Romantic Tarot by Barber Studios, and this is the first copy I've ever purchased. I fell absolutely head over heels in love with this deck. Just everything about it, from the backs to the images, obviously the romance of it, the whole theme. And I use this for a lot of love readings in my practice. I found it really beautiful. It spoke to a number of issues. I also used it for some personal work as well. And yeah, I do consider this to be a really personal deck, so it's not one that I'm planning to bring out for other people. So yeah, I think this is stunning. There are so many walkthroughs of this deck as well. It's very beautiful, and I just love Barber Studios. Absolutely divine and really lovely to shuffle as well. I really loved this deck this year. A deck I purchased at the beginning of the year was the Blood Moon Tarot, and I was in an episode of Say Yes to the Deck with Lisa Papez, and this is the deck that we decided I should purchase. And it was definitely a fantastic purchase because I did use this quite frequently, especially in the first half of the year. I was just drawn to this deck instantly. There was something about it that was just so raw, and I guess some of the images are quite disturbing as well in certain ways, and kind of triggering in a way, and that is probing in a shadow work sense, and that's mainly how I use this. And it would often bring those shadows up and sometimes be quite daunting to reflect on. So often with these spreads I would sit with them for a week or two. There is something very sacred about this deck as well. It's sort of got a verdant gnosis about it. It feels like it has definitely got its own spirit, and it feels like it was almost channeled in its beauty and its wisdom. I definitely connected very deeply with this deck and hope to continue to use it. This is one of my favourite images actually. It's like heartbreaking and beautiful and raw. So this played a major part in my reading this year. The Blood Moon Tarot. A deck I picked up towards the end of the year, but I have used so much since I bought it, is this Outgrow Yourself. This is a tarot and oracle deck, and it is based on the Thoth. I've read Lon Milo DuQuette's book on Aleister Crowley's Thoth. However, I still don't feel like I'm au fait with all of the meanings, so I definitely use this as a oracle, particularly if it's one such as this works. It doesn't come with a guidebook either. I know that some people have made like their own little guidebooks, which I think would be a great thing to do. If it's the start, I would obviously use my understanding of the tarot, but also I definitely use the oracle messages, Plant by the Moon. I just found this so deeply nourishing and healing. Like every day when I would pull a card from here, I felt like deeply seen and held by the divine, and then by myself. I was sort of almost able then to hold myself through pain and stuff, you know, circumstances that were going on. Find the fire inside you. So yeah, I found this incredibly empowering. Yeah, one of my favourite decks this year. Definitely, absolutely masterpiece. The art is, again, in a similar way, obviously the art style is really different, but there is a kind of sacred gnosis to this. And it, again, does feel channeled, the art, the emotions conveyed, the spiritual kind of experience. So I found this really deep and profound, and I think definitely it came in as I was deepening my work with the goddess Lilith as well, who has been coming through for about a year or so, and I haven't really talked a lot about Lilith or working with Lilith on my channel because I've worked with Morrigan for a long time, and Morrigan has been the deity I connect the most with, it became a little bit strange that actually Lilith was coming through stronger. And with the Morrigan it often ebbs and flows though, so that is something that I've come to understand. But I'm getting to a place where I'm understanding the relationships more and able to kind of process the shifting of the dynamics of my relationships with these deities, and because obviously they shift and the energy is constantly moving. So I do feel like this was a deck that came to me from Lilith. It was a prompting from Lilith to get this deck. And yeah, I absolutely adore it. This is definitely staying out for 2023. This is the Outgrow Yourself Oracle and Tarot deck. I will of course link the decks below, as many as I can. If I'm unable due to word count to link all of the decks, I will prioritize linking the independent decks. But if there are any decks that I'm unable to link and you'd like a link for it, obviously just pop a message to me in the comments below and I will do that for you. Another most used oracle is this. This is the Hellenic Oracle, and this is by Thea at Garden Goddess Tarot. I have really enjoyed this deck, and I picked it up because it just called to me, honestly. And I didn't at the time work with any deities within the pantheon. However, I have been called by Hekate for many years. In fact, Hekate was there when the Morrigan showed up. Hekate has always just sort of occasionally been there prompting me, reminding me that she's there. So occasionally in dreams and keys and visions and such would show up. And after I got this, I kind of realised that it was perhaps her influence coming through. So I worked with this mostly alongside other tarot decks and would look very much into the imagery as well as then whatever deity or figure was within the images to help to divine wisdom from that card. And again, it's a deck that I want to dive deeper into. Thea has created an expansion pack as well. That is something that I may do this year or later down the line if it's still available. I've really enjoyed working with this. It's incredibly beautiful and I really enjoy watching Thea's channel. I think that she's got a lot of wisdom and just always really, really profound spiritual kind of reflections, and I really enjoy watching their channel. So if you haven't got this deck and it speaks to you, I would definitely go over and get this. It's a print on demand. So Medusa is also a goddess who has been showing up for several years. So it feels like as well these very strong female deities keep showing up, and they are really, really persistent as circumstances within the world sort of seems to kick up. There is a correlation. I'm not really sure what it is. It seems like these deities seem to keep reaching out and get more and more persistent with many people that I've spoken to. Actually, it's because there's work to do, definitely, and I feel that that is a calling. But I've really enjoyed this deck. I'm going to keep working with it. I'm going to keep this out. I would highly recommend this one. This is the Hellenic Oracle by Thea at Garden Goddess Tarot. Okay, so time for a spooky deck. During spooky season, I used the Tarot of the Vampires the most. I said I might read Phantasmagoria. I didn't get round to it, so again, that's going to have to wait until next year. Maybe I don't have to read it at Halloween. Maybe I could read it before. I definitely do want to. But yeah, I really enjoyed working with this. So Tarot of the Vampires, this deck, I've loved this for years. This feels really erotic, and I didn't really work with any sexy decks this year apart from this deck, and I really, really enjoy this deck. But it is again quite painful to use. Again, it's very shadow worky. I'm seeing like a lot of similarities in the decks that I use the most, and it's because of the kind of readings I was doing and the kind of introspective work, the kind of shadow work that was coming up for me, and these are the decks that spoke to that the most. And some other decks as well, the Murder of Crows and the Darkness of Light, but I've shared those decks so many times on my channel. The truth is I definitely use this deck more than I use those two, so that's why they're not appearing here, but they still played a part in reading in this way, these shadow work readings, that they're actually kind of painful. So again, you kind of have to sit with them for a few days or weeks. And my reading style really drastically changed this year. I decided that I would not be writing down all of my readings, which freed me up. I also wouldn't always read at certain times when I would tell myself that I should. So if it didn't feel right to read it a Sabbath with my own spread, I didn't necessarily. And when it felt right to, I did. And I would record the spreads that I would do readings for for myself for new moons and full moons and Sabbats, because I create new and full moon custom tarot spreads for every single lunation. That becomes quite intense to record all of those readings, and I just felt that it was too much. I was getting too many messages and it was too intense. So I'd do a new moon reading occasionally and a full moon reading occasionally, and that was sufficient for me. And I recorded those ones and any that I did at Sabbats, but I didn't do a reading for every Sabbat because it was too intense, and I found it overwhelming, in all honesty, to read so frequently and to be getting messages, and often the same messages. And I needed to make sure that I was actually taking that knowledge, that wisdom and the messages from the tarot and oracle, and actually make changes or, you know, implement things in my life to make it better. So that's more the way I went with it this year. And for other reasons as well, there were times when I wasn't reading so consistently because I didn't want to receive certain messages either. So I took some time away occasionally. I just was reading less frequently because of some personal and psychological things that were going on for me, and I didn't necessarily want to be reading about them. So I focused more on reading for others, for friends and family, and that was kind of preferred at a certain part around the middle of the year, really. The Barbara Walker Tarot, this deck for several years has kind of gone with me to many places. I think mostly because actually the tin really works for me. I love the tin. And this deck also is so fierce and sharp and it's a bit of a ball buster. I believe this one is based on the Thoth as well, but again, I need to read guidebook really. But I just find it gives really, really great readings, and again, it's usually quite harsh. What I need to hear, it's not what I want to hear, and again, that is one of the reasons why I stepped away for a short amount of time in the sort of middle of the year-ish, roughly, because I couldn't keep receiving the same messages. I didn't want to hear it. And that is a personal thing that I think every tarot reader, tarot practitioner kind of comes up against occasionally. So if you can hear the cat is just right here, so that's what the pairing is. But yeah, the Barbara Walker Tarot was present throughout and used a number of times quite significantly throughout 2022, an important deck for me. Whilst I was reading for a number of people, I found these were 3 decks that I use quite frequently when reading for others. There were a few others as well that I've shown in previous videos, like the Mermaid Tarot by Lo Scarabeo. I couldn't get away from that, I did use that, but again, I think I use these more, so that's why sharing these. This took me a really long time to find secondhand on eBay for a reasonable price and goes for a lot. The reason I used these was because I found that they were actually really good in predicting the truth of what people were asking for. So if someone came to me with a love reading, this one would come out as an oracle deck to accompany the tarot reading, and would often be very pertinent and supportive for that reading. So yeah, this one was quite well used because it was secondhand, as you can see. But I love it. I really enjoy this deck. I do think that there's something about the Doreen Virtue decks, and I bought them secondhand, so I don't feel in any weird way about that. I know that some people don't like using her decks, and that's fair enough, that's a personal choice, but this is my choice. It's because I genuinely feel that they work really well. I don't really have any feeling about the person and separate the creation from the creator, really. But yeah, that is my take on it, and you're absolutely allowed to have your own, but I do feel like they work really well in readings for others, so I used it quite a lot with others. Another one was the Psychic Tarot by John Holland. I picked this deck up after I saw Bronnie Kay speaking about this deck, actually, because they felt that it was giving really clear messages that were quite predictive. I definitely found this useful reading for others as well as for myself. The imagery isn't really my cup of tea, as some of the language doesn't really speak to, is a little bit new agey, but nonetheless I still feel that it has a place, especially reading for others. So I pulled this out, and mostly as an oracle deck rather than tarot. The Fairy Tarot cards by Doreen Virtue and Radley Valentine. This was another that was secondhand and took me a little bit of time to get. I got the Angel Tarot as well, which I think I probably used them both around similar amounts of time, but sharing this one because I think the imagery kind of speaks maybe a little bit more to what I was wanting to express and feel within readings. I also managed to get the Guardian Angel Tarot as well, which was really nice to use personally. So I've really been enjoying using these old Doreen Virtue decks, and I'm going to keep continuing this year as well. I feel that they are primarily really great for readings for others, but I do occasionally read with them personally, and I feel they have a place in predictive readings. And again, while the imagery isn't my favourite, it's a solid deck and I really enjoy it. So I've chatted about so many decks and I've still not mentioned this. Now this became my soul deck. This came into my life because I'd had it on my list for so long. I even took it to say yes to the deck, but it wasn't the deck that ended up coming out on top because I didn't know that it would quite have this impact on me. This, in a way, took the place of my Rider-Waite-Smith because I feel that I can read with this just as well as I would with the Rider-Waite-Smith. But there's some other layer of fantastical, pagan truth, knowledge, wisdom, some kind of earthly spirit. I love these moon cards as well. Just everything about these illustrations. Obviously, they're quite pippish. That really didn't hold me back. I feel that there's enough in the imagery and to use alongside the wisdom of the tarot that I already have. It's enough, and I fell in love with this. I use this deck for many different readings for myself personally, and I found that it always spoke to me and gave me beautiful answers and wisdom, and this became a soul deck, in all honesty. I could not stop working with this deck after it came into my life, and it is staying out forever. I am probably going to have to get another copy because I do not see this lasting very long at all. I've really tried to keep it as well as I can, considering how much I've used it. But yeah, I'm definitely going to have to get another copy, I think. This is my soul deck. Most used and will be a standout as well, of course. And before this, I'm not even sure that I believed in soul decks, but there you go. I do talk a little bit more about this in my VR to Simon All About Tarot, which was a few months back. So that is on my channel if you want to see that. I speak a little bit more about it. But yeah, this is the Usi Pagan Otherworlds Tarot, and absolutely beautiful and fantastic. Just joy. Love, love, love. The Seasons of the Witch Beltane Oracle, or Biertana, although it does say Beltane. And this is by Lorraine Anderson and Juliette Diaz and illustrated by Giada Rose. I really like Juliette Diaz's writing and I am definitely collecting these oracles. I love the Samhain Oracle and I love the Yule Oracle, of course, but this was the one that came out this year. I really enjoyed this and used it a lot. I think this works really, really beautifully for actually the whole of spring and summer even. Oh, I think the Madonna one is coming out this year, which I'm really excited for. The autumn equinox is such an important time of year for me. I think it's because when I first came into learning about witchcraft, I was studying Wicca and in my teens, and Madonna just seemed really like meh. But when I say the autumn equinox, which is what I call it myself personally, and when I think about the time of year, it's such a special sacred time for me that it's, yeah. Anyway, I'm talking about the Madonna Oracle that's about to come out, but this is the Beltane Oracle and it's just beautiful. I think that I actually might use this for a star as well this year. Even though it's not quite there, there's still this symbolism that it just is perfect. It's a beautiful, beautiful deck. So I am loving the Seasons of the Witch and loving Juliette Diaz's writing. So if you've never read a book by her, I would highly recommend. There we go, that is Seasons of the Witch. Okay, a standout deck and a most used deck, Woodland Wardens. Oh my gosh, I've heard this so many times with the Pagan Otherworlds. This is by Jessica Rue, illustrator on Instagram. She has florography as well, that book. It's beautiful. So you get a plant spirit and an animal spirit, and I use this, as I said, with tarot decks. I also use this on its own and found it really beautiful and really pertinent, and I really enjoyed the messages. And often I would work with the herb as well that would pop out. I think it's a gorgeous deck. I'm definitely going to keep working with this. So that is the Woodland Wardens. The Botanica tarot deck, a tarot deck about flowers, the language of flowers. I use this such a lot in the start of the year. It has gone away for a few months. I think I put it away when I got all the spooky decks out. And I have missed it actually. I've been working with quite a lot of plant spirit oracles and tarot decks. I mean, definitely over the years, but now I seem to have a bigger collection that is really special, and this is one of the most beautiful of all of them. And the messages are fabulous. They are just beautiful. The gilding kind of comes off, as you can see, it's sort of coming off, but beautiful plant spirits. Obviously you need the guidebook to discover what plant it is if you don't already know. Just absolutely breathtakingly gorgeous. And you feel like you're closer to the plant spirit, and it's a stunning deck. I love this. Oh my gosh. Wow. I love it. So I think this is going to come out again now, actually. I'm ready to work with this one again because it's been a few months, it's been away. So this is coming out. I The Earthy Souls and Spirits Oracle. This came out around autumn time. I mean, in terms of my decks. And I had it out all through spooky season. This is one of the independent ones. It's the last print run I think she did of this, and now this is available mass market, so that's really good. It's just stunning. So these are like watercolour paintings and then a different keyword. There's a little slip but no guidebook or anything. It's Terry Foss and Sarah Robinson. The artwork is just splendid. I've used this such a lot and it continues to speak to me, so I think I will be keeping this out for a little longer because I love it. Another deck I used really frequently was the Magdalene Oracle, and this is Tony Carmine Salerno. It's a Blue Angel. I actually picked this up secondhand. I found, again, this card came out so often for me. I'd work with this deck 1 week and then I'd pull another card and it would be the same card and I'd be like, whoa, okay. So this is kind of probably when I got to the point where I was like, I think I've heard the same things enough, and I sort of took a step back because I needed a little bit of space from all of the wisdom and the truth. It was just a little bit intense. So yeah, nonetheless, I love this. It's a stunning deck and it has a lot of wisdom. The guidebook is fantastic. Again, this is staying out. It's been really powerful this year. Definitely divine feminine wisdom. Definitely speaking to Mother Mary, obviously Mary Magdalene, and discovering more of those mysteries of the Magdalene. I think it's part of the same work that I was talking about with these other deities. I don't think it's a coincidence that so many powerful female deities are coming through for me and for many others at the moment, and this is one of the reasons I think it's this work that is having to happen and that we're being called to do. If that doesn't resonate with you, then that doesn't resonate with you, but I know from having spoken to a lot of people that it does, and for me, yeah, I really, really feel it, and it's personal work to improve yourself for the world, really. Really painful, profound shadow work and introspective work, and this was really, really emotional for me this year. So the Black Lily Tarot is another tarot deck that I have used really frequently this year, and for several years, you know, it's been a consistent favourite. It's really raw, and again, there's so much introspective work there. It's a really, really personal deck for me. I just use it for my own readings. I haven't really used it for anyone else. It feels very emotional and raw, and I feel very vulnerable using it, and even sharing it, I feel very vulnerable. So I think it speaks to like an inner part of me and an inner part of myself. And there's something about the illustrations, of course, there's something about the whole deck that I cannot, I don't think there are words for this deck. This is probably going to be one of my favourite decks of all time because it's like a forever companion. There is more work to do collaboratively. It's like, yeah, you're still going. Keep striving for harmonising the sides of yourself you are trying to bring together, that person that you're going to be. It's a really raw deck for me, and I have to keep working with this deck. This is staying out as well. Now it's time for a few standout decks that I haven't mentioned yet. The Shimmering Veil, this came to me this year, and whilst I didn't use it all that much, I used it for a few little readings, and then I've used it for a couple of bigger readings. I haven't used it as much as some of the other decks. This was a deck that has been on my list for a while, and this is a very special deck because it came to me from Hazel Jane Tarot, who was selling their copy, so I bought it from them. I love this deck. It is so profound, so beautiful. It reminds me somewhat of the RWS Tarot, but the art is different in its own way. I think it works really well with the soul cards. It's very intuitive messages. It reminds me a lot of the Margaret Peterson as well, which I really love that deck. So this has kind of been filling that space for me this year, and it's going to continue to be a well worked with deck. It's just stunning. Oh my gosh. And the emotions, I feel like this is like being immersed in like a massive wave of emotions, and a quest for deeper understanding, deeper emotional intelligence, and a search for like the knowing of the inner wounds. A great deck for shadow work. So profound, beautiful. I love it. So that is the Shimmering Veil, a standout for this year. I have some botanical decks that have come to me recently. I recently picked up the La Flora Tarot, and so I've worked with this only a few times. I think it's still not been shuffled all that well. This is a plant spirit deck, and I haven't had a chance really to work with it yet, but you can see there's the different plant genus, and I got the guidebook as well, which came separately. Yeah, as I said, I haven't really worked with this yet, so I'm excited to dive in. Currently this is downstairs in my kitchen, which is apothecary, because I feel then I can like pull a plant spirit card whenever I need to. So I'm going to start to cultivate a practice with this deck this year. I find it very beautiful and really excited to get to know this deck but definitely a standout for this year. Really special, really beautiful. So that is La Flora Tarot. And another deck I backed on Kickstarter is the Althea Oracle deck. And I've used this a few times since it arrived, which was just literally just before Christmas. This is really clear. It's got a message, hold on to your vision, yarrow, and then it's got the plant names in German as well as in Latin, and it's got numbers on the card, so it's got everything you really want. Romanticize your life, mugwort. So I really like the clarity of this. It's really beautiful. It's kind of like what I've always wanted in a plant deck. And again, this is downstairs because it's really nice to work with in my kitchen herbal apothecary space. It doesn't really work very well for like big pulls because obviously it's such a thick deck, but it's very beautiful and it's really nice to pull one card a day or a couple of cards for the week. A very beautiful oracle deck I've been enjoying working with. Another standout deck is this deck, which is so beautiful. It's the Mysteries of the Black Madonna, and I used this quite a lot at the start of the year. I broke the bag accidentally, which I really am cross with myself about. I don't even know how that happened. The reason I stopped using it so frequently was because I found it quite intense, some of the messages, and also I found it quite hard to shuffle. But having said that, it has stayed out throughout the entire year. It's been like a very sacred kind of presence, and I don't think that I really deepened the connection with this deck yet that I wanted to, and so it's staying out for that reason. The book is out. It's one that I think I need to really build a connection to properly because I was finding it quite intense using it because I had some quite strong experiences with the Madonna in the astral, and yeah, very personal, very profound, and the last year has been really, really difficult in a number of ways. So whilst it's really beautiful, I have really enjoyed using it. I connect with it. I think there have just been a few things that stood in the way, so I don't think we've really bonded yet, which I'm still keen to do. So that is something that I want to continue with this deck. I think it's just a slow burn and it's staying out for that reason. A deck that came into my collection quite recently is the Old Ways Magic Oracle by Naomi Cornuck. This has been on my list for years. I have been using this deck to commune with the Morrigan and to glean wisdom for the seasons, like seasonal wisdom. But yeah, this came in quite recently, so it was sort of autumn time, winter time, and started working with it for the Morrigan, and I found it really incredibly beautiful, and the messages speak to me, and the art, again, it feels very profound and sacred and raw and visceral, and just something, it speaks to something wild inside me. There aren't that many cards, but I don't really mind because I feel that it's very balanced in its way, and there's so much in this. Stunning. I love this deck. So this is the Old Ways Magic Oracle. This is the Starlight Illuminated Tarot by Carol Hertzer. This was a standout deck for me because I was sick of not using it enough. I love this deck, and I think I was in that mindset of like not using it because it's the most beautiful, and I was like, oh, for goodness sake. So I just got it out and I realised how perfect it is for winter, like the cold half of the year, because of the blue and the starry skies, and it just feels snowy and wintry. So I really enjoyed working with this, especially during the lead up to Christmas. Was tempted to buy like a Christmassy tarot, and then I thought I don't need one because this gives me the vibes. This is it. So this is absolutely a standout because it's just beautiful. It satisfies my need for Rider-Waite-Smith in my life without, you know, me using the Centennial. And it's got its own special magic as well. Love it. Starlight Illuminated Tarot by Carol Hertzer. The Aquarian Tarot, this was a real surprise. I picked this up vintage on eBay, and I think it was kind of an accident. I sort of put in a bid and then didn't expect to win it, and then when it arrived, I was so surprised. I never thought I was into this deck at all, and then when I started using it, it really spoke to me. Something about the colours were really intriguing and beautiful and felt Rider-Waite-Smithy, but without being Rider-Waite-Smith. And I just love these. It's so vintage, which I love, but it has all of the symbolism. I think I really enjoyed working with this. So this was a surprising standout for the year. So that's the Aquarian Tarot, and it's a vintage copy. This one is from 1970. Thinking about it, there is something about working with numerous tarot decks that kind of deepens your connection. Not that you have to in order to be a tarot reader, but you start to build up different connections and relationships, and then you understand more about how your practice is shifting and changing based on the way that you are relating to the decks, which is really interesting. Does that make any sense at all to anyone? Let me know if it does. Then this is the Roots and Wings mini oracle deck. I wanted to get the full size, but when I was buying this, it wasn't available. So I thought that maybe it had gone out of print, but I don't think it had. So I kind of regret that I didn't manage to get the full-size one, but maybe in the future, because I have used this quite frequently and really enjoyed it. It's very beautiful, simple meanings. I love the white space, the illustrations are beautiful. Again, they work really, really well pulled on their own, and this is a beautiful deck to travel with for that reason. It's very well balanced and lovely messages, as well as, you know, messages for improvement and introspection and things just to ponder on as well. This was really beautiful to work with this year. Definite standout, the Roots and Wings Oracle. So the Magical Botanical Oracle by Maxine Miller and Christopher Penczak arrived the other day. The book is by my bedside, as is the card that I pulled for today, because I am currently working with this. I shared a walkthrough of this on Instagram the other day. It's not quite the full deck, but most of it. Again, this also feels like it has this verdant gnosis to it. It feels very, very channeled, divinely channeled. Like that this art could only have been created with the knowledge and understanding of the plant spirit wisdom, and that the transmission of that. I have just finished reading the 13 Pathways of Occult Herbalism by Daniel A. Shulk, and this speaks to that so beautifully. Like, they just go together really, really well. So this was a great deck to arrive whilst I was pondering that book. So yeah, it's a stunning, stunning deck. I would highly recommend this. And it's mass market as well, so it's just perfect. And another standout deck, already I know it is, although it's just literally arrived. So I've opened it and I've not worked with it yet. This is the Canterbury Oracle. I first saw this on Thea's channel, RWS Tarot, and I knew I needed to get it. I've always been drawn to the art of Laura Zuspan, who did the art for, is it the Illuminated Tarot? But I never felt drawn to the figures within that deck. But when I learned what this was about, an ecological, spiritual guide and creative prompt deck, I knew that this would be powerful for me in my practice. The Dark Solstice Sun, you don't know where you are, but you are free. So they're still in order. The Dawn that follows the prolonged night, primary nourishment, the living mountain. So I felt that this would be really beautiful to pull alongside herbalism, botanical, investigative practice. The Voice of the Moon, that is so beautiful. So yeah, I am really excited to dive into this, to read the guidebook. There are so many guidebooks I need to read. I used to always read the guidebooks, and now I don't always necessarily read them, and I feel like I should. But yeah, I cannot wait to get to I want to keep it in order, but what's the point? I'm gonna definitely need to just shuffle it, but wow. This is a really magical deck, you can just feel it. So this is obviously going to stay out. Oh my gosh, wow. I have goosebumps. I can literally feel the goddess through this deck. Oh my god, wow. Okay, so that is the Canterbury Oracle. I'm not sure why Canterbury. I'm sure that that will probably be explained within. What is Canterbury? A word created from two roots. Cantus, a word that could be translated as song, spell or enchantment, and gi, a suffix that translates as earth. Ah, so earth spell, earth song, earth enchantment. That is basically, yeah, it's like the whispers of the earth. So I am so excited for this. This is what I think I've needed in my practice for a really long time, so I'm very excited. And finally, two decks that are standouts for me and I've started working with really heavily in the last half of the year are these two. So the Lenormand, I have the Celtic Lenormand, but I just prefer this because it's more traditional, and this Witch Fortune telling playing cards. Obviously the title is really problematic, so I don't know if there's any way for them to change that. I think because it's such an old deck, probably not, but I'm working with it nonetheless because I have it, and I'm getting some really interesting readings from it. More specifically, this Lenormand deck. I'm learning Lenormand. I started in earnest this year, really, even though it's been part of my plans to learn for quite a long time. It is now happening, and I'm very happy about that. So I'm learning the meanings and interpreting them, reading with it every day, and loving it. I love like the immediacy, the feeling of predictiveness of it that I just love, and I feel that you can't get from tarot. So I'm really enjoying that, and I will kind of deepen my practice with the witch playing cards, fortune telling playing cards, as well as my wisdom with the Lenormand deepens, because there's a Lenormand deck within this. It's more like a deck of playing cards, like a full deck. So focusing on the Lenormand first and then going to sort of transfer over, but I'm still using this occasionally so that I don't forget about it. So that basically brings me to the end. Obviously I've shared quite a few standout decks that are newer and I've also shared some older decks that I picked up this year or before that I consider to be standout in my practice. There's quite a lot here. Essentially, if I said it was a standout, then it is. And many of the most used were standout decks for me. If you have any questions at all for me about any of these decks, if you'd like some more information or anything that I didn't speak to, please of course reach out and let me know, and I would be happy to chat to you about these decks. I haven't even piled them up that well here, but this gives you an idea of the decks that were just speaking to me the most this year, that I've been working with the most, and that kind of made up my year. And it's been a challenging year, and I think it was definitely challenging feeling that I was kind of coming away from my reading at a certain point. I just couldn't receive the same readings, and I also didn't want to read for myself because there were certain things I was hoping to see in the cards. So I had to take some time away from reading for myself and just read for others for a couple of months really in the middle of the year. Nonetheless, it was a year that probably won't forget, a year that I'm really happy to say goodbye to, and it was still a fantastic learning experience this year. So leave me any questions below, and thank you so much for joining me. So I really hope that you enjoyed seeing all the decks I had to share and all of the little nuggets of experience and stumbling blocks I came up against, and the shadow work and all the things I've kind of been going into and experiencing this year. I really hope that you enjoyed it and you got something from it. Like the video if you enjoyed it, share it with anyone who you think would also be interested in discovering these decks or also working with these decks, or you know, if you think any of the things I spoke to align with you or any of your friends. It'd be great just to build more of a community and get chatting as well. I'd love to hear some of your experiences below in the comments, and if there was anything I spoke to here that really resonated with you or something that you've experienced in the past or that you have any thoughts on, I'd love to hear that as well. Obviously I ask that you just keep it respectful in the comments and inclusive for everyone and safe, and I'm really glad to be in 2023 and feeling positive and fresh and also exhausted, not gonna lie, like being completely transparent, really tired, full of exhaustion. I had COVID for the very first time in December, so that was a new experience. I still got that post-exhaustion, and there was this weird flu going around, and it's been quite a lot. So like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell if you'd like to be notified when I create and upload similar videos. Also leave me a little book emoji as well in the bottom if you made it to the end of the video. If you'd like to support me, I have an Instagram page, TikTok and a Patreon. On Patreon I share new and full moon forecasts, including all the planetary aspects, how to work with them, shadow work prompts, ritual ideas, herbs to work with and crystals to work with, as well as a PDF of a bespoke tarot spread as well that I share. I also share Book of Shadows pages that I create from rituals and practices that I share on the channel. That's all on Patreon, so do go over there if you'd like to join our little group. There's a Discord server as well there, so that's also really nice. So thank you again so much for joining me. I hope that you stay well and safe. Have an amazing 2023, and I look forward to seeing you again in another video really soon. Take care. Bye. Mwah.